we're really living in a particular time and cultural frame now where we're so deeply educated into, holding a perspective that makes us, believe that violence is inevitable and pleasurable and necessary, that consumption is one of our jobs, that individualism is the truth, and that we need to look to ourselves to cite all of our problems within ourselves. And so many of those things that, like, for me, they were just shellacked into my understanding, not as ideas or perspectives, but as reality. And so some of the things that helped me to pull away from those ideas, I'm going to list here. Every day, I take some time to learn about nonviolence as a kind of a daily vitamin to counteract the idea of violence, as I said a minute ago, of inevitable, necessary, pleasurable. Today I'm reading this marvelous book about the 1963 Birmingham Children's March. And, for those of you who aren't familiar with this particular aspect of U.S. history, because if you're like me, it was not even mentioned. But, children as young as 9 years old were engaged in political activism and trained in nonviolence in order to be able to engage in the way that they did. And so today, I was reading a story of a girl, Arnetta Streeter, who is 14 years old, and she was getting trained to be one of the protesters, as so many of the children were back in Birmingham then. And she wrote about, and she talked about that seeing King and him speaking about he didn't just say love your neighbor, he also said love your enemy. And then she talked about that in 1962 when King was speaking in Birmingham, a young white man, I'm reading from the book, a young white man named Roy James jumped onto the stage and attacked him with brass knuckles, slugging him in the back and jaw. And rather than return the blows or even cover his face, King dropped his hands by his side and looked at his assailant. Other ministers rushed to restrain James, but King stopped them. "Don't touch him," he cried. "We have to pray for him." King put his arm around the man who had been attacking him. They talked quietly. The man, a member of the American Nazi Party, started crying and admitted that he'd come there to prove that King was not nonviolent. And King chose not even to press charges. I've read a very, very, very strikingly similar story of Gandhi in his South Africa days. For me, reading a story like that is just food for my journey today, and just and deepening my understanding of how many times in history people have looked squarely into the face of chaotic and challenging times and gotten through it in ways that are triumphant. And we haven't learned about them in schools. We haven't learned. So I want to name my first idea is every day spend a little time learning about nonviolence in whatever ways, whatever frame. And thank goodness there's such riches online and so many books. And, and I advise you to read King and Gandhi yourself. Read Mandela yourself. Read Bajia Khan's words yourself. Read the source material, not just what the people have written about the source material. That for me, reading their words directly, and thank goodness there's a lot out there that both of them were prolific. The second thing is I want to recommend is that every day take some time to slow down and know yourself through some quiet time or prayer, yoga or meditation. I imagine there's many of you who are already striving to do this many days or most days. And I just want to affirm and thank you for that effort, and ask you to realize how important it is to do that. That very much relates to something I talked about on the first week, that project think before reacting notion. How much freedom in the world is in that space between our stimulus and our response. And if we don't give ourselves the time to develop the muscles, the spiritual muscles, the spiritual practice. It's a practice because we're practicing non-reactivity. We're practicing reflection. We're practicing openness. And one of my ways that I'm doing it right now, because I like to change things up, is like right now, my morning quiet time is including memorizing a Rilke poem. And I've just been so deeply into this poem in the last days that it's like it almost helps me to examine my conscience right now. Like how am I living? Am I living in a way that I like? Am I happy with it? So spending some time to be quiet, to know yourself, to learn a passage by heart that has deep meaning, yoga, meditation, a critical part of being able to live nonviolence. So my third idea for a live practice of nonviolence, which comes in part, as I said, from Dr. Michael Nagler, is every day take an action of any size. Every day take an action of any size to make the world better. Listening to people who are distressed and to people whose perspectives differ from you especially counts. But active service of any kind counts. Pay attention to your opportunities to be of service. One thing that I've started doing is I often don't have cash with me. And as I'm running around, I'm running all the time into people who are begging on the streets here where I live. And I also just, sometimes just giving money doesn't feel like it gives the kind of care that I like. So, like, I carry a box of energy bars around with me. And I love giving energy bars to people. They're good, healthy kind that are sort of sweet, too. So if someone has a sweet tooth, they'll like it. But it's good, healthy food, and it just gives me, like, a sense of joy to do that. And I'm not doing that for them. I'm doing it for me. I'm doing it for me because I don't want to be the kind of person who is able to walk past someone who's asking for my help and not respond. So that's a third thing, is every day take an action of any size to make the world better. And then the last one I'll name for today, and then we can open it for questions. And I think I may be slightly repeating myself, but I forgive myself for that now and then, is I really want to counsel people to think about their consumption of media. Because for so many of us, and I know it's true for me, and I ask other folks, every day, often the consumption, especially of mainstream media, often can make us fearful, distrusting each other, distrusting our sense of solutions and possibilities. So I want to just really say that one piece of the live practice of nonviolence is to be thoughtful about the stories and information that you take in. Be thoughtful about consuming information, especially when you're doing it rather automatically. That leads to those kind of states. That's not an empowering move. Be thoughtful about where you take in news. And again, I want to mention Yes Magazine. That's other kinds of news. That's also true, and that can help you to feel like that we're moving towards, finding solutions we can become solutionaries, as Weil talks about. So just be thoughtful about that, because your well-being and your capacity to be creative and alert and alive is important, and able to be creative. Those are all critical qualities right now. So these are four of ideas that every day take some time to learn about nonviolence. Every day make some time to slow down and know yourself through quiet time of some kind. Every time take some action of some size to make the world better. Every day pay attention to your consumption of media. From the study that I've had, all of my heroes' lives were influenced by daily choices and disciplines that over time yielded their extraordinary lives. So in my search for guidelines for daily living, I pay attention to the choices, because I know that over time, if I choose to do this every day, or choose to strengthen whatever I'm doing in these kinds of areas already, then over time the trajectory of my ability, my presence, my compassion, my wholeheartedness will change. I trust it. So I recommend even a 30-day experiment with these 4 ideas as an opportunity to change your life's trajectory, and maybe to escape from what might be a sort of orbital pull of habitual energy and in our cultural norms. And I believe that also writing about that effort would make it even more fruitful. So I have a whole other piece around being a learner that I want to share, but I think I'm going to stop for today and see what kind of questions and ideas other people want to talk about today.